So I've been wanting to do a video for some time on the importance of doing your own guitar work at minimum, your own basic setups. But I realized soon after my initial attempts at making such a video that it was just way too much content to try to fit into one video. So I've decided to break down the process into smaller bits, and we're starting off that series with this video on the guitar tools that you need to start doing your own basic setups at home. We will start off covering just more general basic setup tools. And then later on, we will discuss more specialized tools for doing things like electronics, nut work, fret work, and also just specialized tasks that you may come across when doing work on your own guitars. This channel is focused mostly on Fender offset style guitars like the Jazzmaster, the Jaguar, the Mustang, Bass 6, etc. But a lot of these things do pertain to more general guitar work. So when we are talking about doing a basic setup on your guitar, you want to be able to change your strings, dial in your action, and get the feel of your guitar right overall. And you only need a couple of things to get that job done. Now, the very first thing that you're likely going to need to do minor adjustments on things like your bridge are some Allen keys. And a lot of times, if you are buying an aftermarket bridge or buying a guitar new, in your case, it comes with the necessary Allen keys that you need. And so it's as simple as that. Have the Allen keys that you need to adjust the height of your bridge, the height of your saddles. If you do not have those, let's say you bought a guitar used and it didn't come with them, definitely Google to see what kind of Allen keys that you need for the specific hardware that's on your guitar, because those are going to be crucial moving forward in order for you to make the necessary adjustments that you need to. Also, while doing your string changes and things, you just need very basic tools around the house, some wire clippers, for example, as well as just some needle nose pliers. In addition to these, you might want to get yourself a pair of wire strippers. These were not expensive at all. So definitely, as this video progresses, you're going to see places where you're not going to want to skimp on the quality of the tools that you're buying. But for stuff like this, you don't need to go crazy. Some other basic tools that you may already have around the house: a screwdriver, one hopefully that you can change the driver bits on. I like ratcheting screwdrivers. It's a comfortable one. It does the job, and it keeps all the little bits inside of the handle. I also obviously like to have a drill. This is not mandatory, but getting yourself a good drill, and I think this is one of the places where you at minimum want to buy something that is a name brand. I've had this Craftsman drill for many, many years now and is still going strong. The battery holds its charge for a fairly long time, and I do have spare batteries on hand as well because I do not want my work to be interrupted. And so even though a drill is not absolutely necessary, it definitely helps you to get the job done way quicker. Now, in addition to a larger ratcheting screwdriver, this is a smaller screwdriver set for more like precision type work, smaller screws that you may need to extract or grubs that you may need to adjust. Now, this one came from StewMac. This is their little screwdriver set. It's expensive, I guess, for what it is, but the great thing about this is that it's got specialized bits and like hex key type bits that are specifically for guitar work. The handle on this screwdriver set is really light and easy to use. And the only downside, I think, to this one is that it's not a magnetized screwdriver. So that's a little annoying when you're trying to screw in pick guard screws and stuff. I would prefer that it was magnetized. I actually do have a little magnetizer that I have magnetized this slightly with. It's definitely well worth it. You will see yourself getting a lot of mileage out of a mini screwdriver set like this one. The next thing that I wanted to mention is to get yourself a good tuner. Now, if you already have a good pedal tuner, industry standards like a Polytune or a Boss TU2 or TU3, that is fantastic. My go-to is my Peterson Strobo Stomp as well as the clip-on. I like to use a strobe tuner because it's the most accurate. When I'm not doing intonation type work, I do also have a Polytune clip-on. I find clip-ons just a lot more convenient than having to actually plug a guitar in, but that is usually my final step. I will start with one of these to get a quick bass line to dial things in, and then I will finish up with my pedal tuners to check to see that I have everything dialed in as accurately as possible. These ones are not too expensive. I think this one might be something like 50 bucks or something. Definitely well worth it. I use this thing all the time. I have a version that is rechargeable. I definitely recommend these even over those Snark clip-on tuners. I don't know if y'all have noticed the drop in quality and precision of more recently produced Snark tuners, but definitely skip those and get yourselves one of these instead, as I find them to be just a lot more accurate. Now, continuing on with more basic guitar setup stuff, it's always a good idea to have some string action gauges. I have more expensive ones like these from StewMac, but you can also get ones from like Amazon for fairly cheap. I actually end up using this cheapo one more than I do the StewMac one. The cheaper one has both metric and imperial. So this one is my go-to. I just use this a lot more. But yeah, string action gauge is important for checking, obviously, your string action, but also for checking the amount of relief that you have in your neck when you start to adjust your truss rod. Now, another thing that I could not live without when it comes to doing guitar setups is a capo. I cannot stress enough the importance of having a capo, especially if you are in the stage where you are dialing in the setup. You've already changed your strings, but maybe you need to pull the vibrato off, or maybe you need to pull the neck off to adjust the truss rod at the heel. Having a capo, and I usually capo at about the 5th fret, having a capo there keeps your strings from just flying off and is so handy. So definitely get yourself a decent capo to have on hand when you are doing those kinds of tasks. Now, another most basic thing that I think most of you already have is probably a string winder. Some folks use these manual ones. These ones are just cheap Dunlop ones that I've gotten over the years. And I haven't even gotten around to getting a drill attachment for mine because, come on, folks, it happens so quickly. Sometimes these have other features built into them, like your string cutters and other utilities. Just having one of these on hand definitely makes doing setups way quicker. You will probably notice while doing guitar work that you will likely have to tighten up some of the nuts, like around your input jack or maybe your volume and tone pots. And having a tool to tighten those very easily, like this T tool that I have here. This is by Cruise Tools, and it's got 1/2 inch as well as metric sizes, 7/16 of an inch, and I believe 12 millimeters for different nut sizes. This helps save me time over just using a normal socket wrench. I don't need to swap out the actual sockets, and it's just a lot smaller and easier to use. So I highly recommend this if you can find a tool like this. Aside from that, of course, you can get yourself a spanner. This one here from Music Nomad is the one that I recommend. The bottom is lined with some kind of felt, which helps you to protect your guitar finish when you are using this. You will learn the hard way if you cheap out on buying something like a no-name generic spanner from Amazon or whatever. This one here is one that I bought many years ago before I knew that they made ones that had a felt lining on the bottom. And this one has a rough bottom here, and it definitely has scratched some of my personal guitars that I tried this on first. So definitely worth the money to buy one that is specifically for guitar that has that felt lining on the bottom. And I actually like having this even in addition to having this kind of tool, because if I get some guitars in for work that require me to say tighten the little nuts on the tuners, for example, I do not have to take off the strings first to tighten those nuts. Whereas if this is all I had, I would either have to take the string off, use this, or even use some needle nose pliers or something, which would not be ideal because, again, you have the danger of potentially scratching the finish on your headstock. So, yeah, that's why I highly recommend getting yourself this Music Nomad spanner. Now, if you're working on a Jazzmaster or Jaguar and it comes with the original threaded saddle bridge or a mastery or a tough set bridge or any other kind of bridge that has a variable radius, you are likely going to want to have a radius gauge on hand. Now, I have two different types that I use. One to kind of dial in the initial ballpark radius. I find the over the string radius gauge, like this one from Music Nomad, is really easy and quick to use for that purpose, right? You're supposed to put this kind of 6 millimeters in front of your saddles to raise each saddle to the point where the overall curvature of your saddles matches that of your fretboard. In addition, for more accurate calibration, I use some under the string radius gauges. Now, you can go super expensive with these, like again with StewMac, but I find that this Music Nomad one is fantastic. It's made of metal, it's very durable. You don't need to go crazy buying expensive under the string radius gauges. I got these ones, I don't even remember where I got these, but I know that you can get these from Amazon. Sometimes if you buy budget tools, you end up with budget quality, and some of those things that more expensive tools do to kind of make sure that they have like a premium and smooth finish are not what you will find on more budget tools. So definitely watch out and double check to make sure that things like your under the string radius gauges do not have any burrs or sharp ends, especially if you would prefer not to mark up or scratch your guitar. Now, the next thing that you are likely going to need, especially if you are dealing with buzzing on your fretboard, is a fret rocker. Now, this one is from StewMac. It is super high quality. It's heavy as compared to a more generic one. The finishing on the StewMac one is obviously a lot better. That said, you do not need to spend a ton of money on a fret rocker. Most of them are perfectly flat. Like what I said, though, with the radius gauges, just double check to make sure that the edges of the tool that you buy, especially if it is a budget one, are not sharp. Like this one, for example, this is a cheap one that I had gotten on Amazon many years ago. And this one does have sharp edges, right? This can like cut me if I am not watching out, and can definitely mark up your fretboard if you slip with it. So even though the StewMac one is expensive, the finishing on it is just a lot better. In addition to a fret rocker, you are also going to need a fretboard straight edge. And I use these notched fretboard straight edges. You can get these from a multitude of places. If you're on a budget, you can get one of these cheap ones from Amazon. They are okay, not the best quality. Again, the finishing on it is not fantastic. That is a common thing. This is one of those Louise. If you've ever been on Amazon looking for budget guitar tools, I don't really use this one at all. I just got it to give as an example for this video, but it does the job, right? The finishing on the bottom is not great. It's a little bit sharp. The ones that I use most regularly are not actually by StewMac because those are super expensive. These ones are made by a company called Neck Check Guitars, and you can get these online. You can Google them. These are made in the USA. I've got ones for short scale because I work on a ton of Jags, and I've got one for the normal scale. This one comes with 25.5 scale length as well as 24 3/4 for your Gibson style guitars. And the short scale one comes with the 24 inches on guitars like Jaguars and Mustangs, and this one also has the shorter scale of 22.5, which you find on some of those old Duosonics, even some of those old Mustangs. So it's handy to have this. You need this in addition to having a fret rocker because you want to make sure that your neck is straight when you are checking to see if you have high frets with a fret rocker. So if you do not trust your eyeball, which I think honestly, for a lot of folks, especially if you are just getting started, I wouldn't try to trust your eyes on seeing if the fretboard is perfectly straight, especially if you have one of the kinds of necks that have the truss rod adjustment at the heel. It's just very, very laborious and time consuming to constantly have to go back and forth and back and forth. Having one of these helps you accurately get that job done in an efficient manner. I wanted to touch on a couple of things that I also use specifically for general setups of offset guitars. That definitely is having some Loctite on hand. Now I've got both this Loctite 222, which I've been using a lot more recently. And prior to that, I had been using the Loctite Blue 242, which is a bit stronger and maybe even a bit overkill. What this is used for is to put a little bit of this on the grubs of things like your bridges, especially if you are dealing with rattles or you are dealing with the bridge lowering itself over time because the tolerances for the screws are not very tight and the vibrations cause the grubs to kind of recess back into the bridge post. This is fantastic for those. Again, my main recommendation to folks for that one is the Loctite 222. This is the purple variant. And I've only started to use this very recently, and it was thanks to you all for chiming in on some of the previous videos that I had done. But this stuff works a treat, and you can get it for fairly inexpensive in this larger bottle. Last a really long time, but this is a must for any offset guitar players, especially if you've got a Squire or you are rocking one of the original threaded saddle bridges. Anything that has a ton of little moving parts and grubs in it that have the potential to rattle or vibrate in a strange way or potentially come loose, having this Loctite thread locker is a must. The other thing that you will want to have is you want to have lubricants of some type, especially for your nut and saddle slots. I've been using the Music Nomad Tune It. I've also used Big Ben's nut sauce. That stuff is perfect also for lubricating your nuts and your saddles. Sorry, I am in middle school. Also for things like lubricating, the tremolo arm because you do not want it to have like a gritty or grindy kind of feeling. Just having like shop grease, even even just a tube of Vaseline. I will commonly just open this thing up, dip the end of the vibrato arm into here, and then we're done. I can just pop that right in, clean off the excess. So having some kind of shop grease, like multi-purpose to lubricate various pieces of hardware is great. Now, I forgot a very basic one at the top, and that is a neck rest to do your guitar work on. This here is from StewMac, but you can get ones from Music Nomad. I like using the foam unless I'm doing more specific guitar work that requires like a wooden caul. But this one probably gets the most mileage in the shop. So yeah, get yourself a decent neck rest for elevating your neck as you do guitar work. All right, folks. Well, that is going to wrap it up for this portion. Again, this was mainly supposed to go over just a couple of basic tools that you need just to dial in a basic setup. Next time, we are going to be covering more tools, ones for doing fret work and nut work. So definitely look forward to it. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell to be notified of new videos as soon as they drop. And don't forget to follow Totally Wired Guitars for more offset guitars setup tips.